Okay, we're back on at 11:43.
All right, we got a kind of a package deal response for some of the written ticket, and I may not catch them all, but the biggest ones, probably wages and holidays at this point. But before that, the contract negotiations just seems to be, listen, if you need 7 days, we can do 7 days. And just have a simple formula of the bargaining team member tells the supervisor, hey, 7 or more days from now, I'm scheduled for bargaining. Here's my request. Business as usual. 7 days is better than 5 days, and we've got to have the understanding, like this bargaining session, we didn't even have 7 days advance notice. So
I ended up putting in for that.
okay. Well, I know you had a lot of different things, but all I'm talking about is just changing the existing language, basically go from 5 to 7, to give you more time. And if there's extenuating circumstances that are just really extremely problematic, the employee can't come, they just absolutely can't come, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there, because in all these years, we haven't had that come up. So I don't think we need to fix something that's not broken, so to speak. Holidays, so if we can get that.
We don't agree with that, but we'll come back to that.
We don't agree with what?
We don't agree with what you just said. I think
Which part?
I think that new language is needed. I'm really surprised that, well, I'm not surprised that you don't want to take responsibility for making sure that the bargainings are properly coordinated and your team is all together and cleared with supervisors. But I'm really surprised that nobody else at the table, the stewards, because you've been coming and going, year in, year out. I'm really surprised that nobody on the team will take responsibility for making sure that the team is properly configured and has clearance to come to the bargaining table. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
I think they all have that.
Okay.
So then, one case.
John, your name's not in my proposal. It doesn't say John shall do the following, okay?
Well, I appreciate your consideration.
All right, it says the union shall. That means any one of the people at this table could take care of that housekeeping item. And I'm really surprised that nobody will step up and take that housekeeping responsibility.
It's an interesting approach you're trying to take here, and it's just not working. I'll tell you this. What is your need? Your need is for the bargaining team member to clearly communicate to their supervisor that they're coming to bargaining in a timely manner. That's to cut it down to its core, right? That's what we need to have happen. You want the bargaining team member to clearly communicate to the supervisor that they're coming to bargain, and that and if you want to put it in writing, it has to be put in writing.
I put it differently. And then you can tell the supervisor that they're not coming to work. Okay?
Well, don't they have to have a reason? Because if they're not coming to work.
That's what they're doing. They're telling the supervisor, I'm not coming to work.
That's what you want them to do?
That's what they're doing, aren't they? When they say, I'm going somewhere else? Whether it's coming to union negotiations or a union seminar or a vacation day or whatever, they're saying, I'm not coming to work.
I think there's a huge.
Because we can schedule around
I'm
those
not coming to work
issues.
because I don't feel good. I'm not coming to work because I have annual leave. Or I'm not coming to work because I'm going to be serving in the capacity of a member of the bargaining team. I think there's a wide apart. And that there's no I guess allegation that someone's abusing their sick leave when they're coming to bargaining. They're still here on county property. And the chances are, when the bargaining session that doesn't go a full day, because we don't like to work full days, then they go back to work afterwards. So you're not losing an entire day, and it's not, I'm not coming to work. It's I'm going to a bargaining session, just in the same way if someone's a member of the safety committee. I'm not coming to work today, is what you want to hear, But really what it is I am scheduled to attend a safety committee meeting, and when I'm released from that meeting, I will come back to work.
However you want to spin it, from the supervisor's point of view, that's an employee that's not coming to work.
I have a question. Suppose I step up and take this job, and a supervisor tells me I never called him. Doesn't that leave the door open for more complaints?
No, that's why it's in the email.
I had-
You have
no.
to
I
submit a
shifted.
request within
Yeah.
5 to 7 days or whatever. You have to submit a leave form that
And
must
that's
be
what we're
approved.
talking about, but Jim was saying somebody steps up and calls all the supervisors to let them know that the guys are
No.
coming.
No, that's not what it is.
No,
Okay.
no, I want you to communicate with your people, I don't want you to communicate with the supervisor.
Okay.
The employee's already taking care of that.
Okay.
And I added language that shifts something to the supervisor. We're sending a message to the supervisor with this language. We're saying to the supervisor, do not deny a request for an employee not to be at work to come to bargaining. Unless, and the unless is very narrow, unless there's an operational planned activity.
If I
Okay?
agree-
And what we would expect in that.
Everything's an operational
We
plan.
we would,
Every single
we would
one.
expect in that particular case for you to communicate, if you're the person, if you're stepping up to the plate, to communicate to say, hey, your supervisor said that, John Doe can't be at the table because he's got something planned. Could you find out if we can work around that? Now, the answer may be,
But wouldn't that mean
with
it's...
with pressure from up above in management to ask that question of the supervisor, maybe that changes, maybe it doesn't. Maybe Barbara calls you back and says, absolutely can't do it. Then you gotta make a choice. Do you come to the table with one less bargaining representative at the table, or do you ask Barbara to reschedule?
Well, that's John's position.
Well, then you
That's not
call
mine.
John,
Yeah.
okay? But somebody's gotta step up and play that role. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about maybe it's you.
How much do I get paid?
I could agree to coordinate it by email, but I'd have to be able to use county email, and I know that some of my colleagues don't have county email, so.
There's not that many people here. Your team is very small. So, all right.
Okay, so, just so I'm clear about your proposal, there's two, for contract negotiations, there's two requirements, one's a 10-day notice, and another one's a 3-day notice, and then another one's a 7-day notice, right? So in 7 days, they gotta tell you something, in 3 days, they gotta tell you something, in 10 days, they gotta tell you something?
No.
No, the last paragraph
paragraph.
where you're looking at 10 days is to cover the situation that we have right now. We scheduled it with less than 10 days notice, period, right? In that case, all you had to do is tell us by noon the day before. Noon yesterday would have been sufficient.
Okay, it just seems odd that if the members of the bargaining team are employees of the county, then how is it that all of a sudden the union is required to start telling the county more than what the union has already told the county, that someone's going to be working on a specific day or not? It's just like,
Because
it's
we
like
have-
outsourcing your HR.
It's to do with the union
duties.
leave account.
John, we changed a couple of things. We took one thing away. We took away the notice to the HR director, number one. Secondly, we added something, which is the union leave account could be used to compensate that employee. So we've changed two key components of what we used to do. And this is the language we think is necessary to make sure all the little boxes get checked off. There might not be enough money in the leave account to pay everybody sitting at the table right now on your side of the table. You may decide that, only A and B are gonna get paid for this bargaining session. And you're gonna make up, I think you indicated that the union's paying them to be here, and you're gonna make up the payment for the other people.
Typically, when I'm in situations where not everybody is paid by the employer, it's usually determined that day, the employer will put out a form for who's being paid. That's usually how it's done. And the reason why, because things come up. And if I say that I need you to pay Jim Boucher, and then Jim Boucher has an operational reason why he decides he doesn't want to come, or if he just all of a sudden gets the flu and gets sick, then we don't have a deduction from the union leave account, and he's not being paid, and I would imagine the response would be, well, you can come back and collect it afterwards. Okay, now I gotta do something else. And so why don't we just decide the day of bargaining, like again, other employers do, pass the form around, or you use on a sign-in sheet who's being compensated through the union leave account. I think that's an acceptable way of doing it.
Well, then I would say, we could do that, we could add a sentence that, just before the first yellow part here, that says, right
No,
after
it's
it
gonna
says.
be replacing something, so
No,
cut out.
let me finish, okay. It says negotiation sessions will be scheduled at mutually agreed times by the county and the union, right? We could add at the end of a bargaining session, whenever possible. Sometimes I know you don't know, or one of us doesn't know what our schedules are, or we want to see if we can move something around to accommodate bargaining. And then I'd add a sentence that says, absent that being done, the following applies.
Okay, where are you inserting this?
In the second paragraph, where it says negotiation sessions will be scheduled at times mutually agreed to by the county and the union at a bargaining session. All right? If that's not possible, the following shall apply.
If that's not possible, then we're not gonna agree upon a scheduled time for.
Situation being, we, at the end of today, we would look at our calendars and say, let's meet on whatever day. I could say, I'll make myself the heavy, I could say, I can't do it that day. I might be able to get somebody to cover for me, which I usually can do on something else, but I gotta let you know. Because I won't be able to get a hold of the other person in my office on the fly.
How does that have anything to do with the requirements that are in it?
Because if we can't do that, so in that particular situation, if we can't work out and confirm the date right there, where you can then say, then your next sentence is gonna be, here's who's gonna be here, right? And then we still have to deal with the issue of notification to the supervisors to make sure that there's nothing scheduled, something significant scheduled. If that's not the case, then the following language applies. We're trying to work with you.
I understand.
Okay,
I
to
mean, I
get
don't
these
know.
things scheduled in an orderly fashion. They have not been scheduled in an orderly fashion.
And, up until recently, you have never been able to commit to a subsequent date, and you've been doing it lately, which is great. Okay, but for years, you haven't. I don't know, we'll get back to you. And then it's like a week later, or 2 weeks later, okay, I have this day, that day, and that day, and everybody's not in the room, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier on those, in those situations. So when, and so that now it all becomes, now it's all on you, where if you decide you don't want to schedule the next meeting, then we have to go through all this rigmarole, where if you do what you should be doing, which is committing to the next bargaining session.
It could be me, could be you, could be Barbara.
I don't think there's ever been a time where I couldn't commit to a date. It may not be the one that's being proposed. If you say, I need to do next Tuesday, and I say, well, I got something planned next Tuesday, let me see if I can move it. That doesn't happen.
We've left bargaining sessions without you committing to a date. I watched the video. Okay, we can play it back to you.
Go ahead, play it back. I don't disagree that, as a bargaining strategy, we would not committed to a date, because that's something we intended to do. But if you say that I have, again, this day, and that day available, and I have commitments on those days, but I'm going to see if I can move them for the convenience of getting back together, then yeah, I wouldn't be able to commit to a date. Those days I didn't offer, but I can always commit to some date. I know I can, I always do. It just may be further out than what you're willing to accept. But anyway, let's just put this on the shelf.
Look, understand, we added detail to make sure that we don't have a problem. We didn't add detail to make sure we can stick it to somebody, because if you think back to what this conversation began at the last bargaining session, Frank, I'm not picking on you, but Frank had not jumped through the proper hoops to be at the bargaining session, called for whatever reason, for misunderstanding.
All right, no.
All right, so hang on a second, let me just finish, all right? So we could have had a choice. We could have said, all right, he's here, but he's not at work. He's not at work without having cleared it through the language of the contract, he's AWOL.
My
So he could be
understanding-
here, but he could have been facing a disciplinary issue.
My understanding is that, okay, and I don't know who's not being truthful, I don't know. But my understanding is that Frank's superiors completely were in the know that he was attending bargaining and completely understood he was coming here and agreed to him to come here. And in fact, am I right, Frank? Am I getting out of line? or-
That's what I was told, yeah.
Okay, he was told by the same supervisors that you claim didn't know he was coming or didn't approve him coming. Like, yeah, man, we'll let you go. I don't know what the big deal is. I don't know who's making a big deal. And the allegation is that someone's making a bigger deal out of it than need be. In this particular case.
Yeah, and I was there too. I witnessed what you're saying with the supervisors.
The supervisors
They were
said
cool
was-
with it. They were all
knew
cool
about
with it.
And it was approved.
Yep.
So-
So, and they
That's what
even,
told me.
Like I said, someone's not being truthful.
So that's
I
one
just-
more detail.
I literally, he emailed me. I got it, and I said, did you just get this today? Rob said, I don't know anything about him going away. He said, and he said, it's a 1-day notice, so.
Someone's not being truthful.
I don't know.
You know, the supervisor's telling him, I don't know what the big deal is, you're approved, I approved you to go.
Might be his first line supervisor, might not be the guy who's above him. That's my guess.
yeah, they were both there, two of them.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
talking about Rob Marion.
Oh, okay.
Whatever,
Yeah.
the bottom
Yeah.
line is we need more detail, this is it. If you want to tweak a word here or there, you know, like I said, John, you took it personally, it doesn't have your name in it, the union could mean anybody at
I
this
didn't take
table.
anything personally. I just find it amusing that, you know, I'm just given another level of responsibility when I'm already telling the county that. Why do I need to tell? I just get a chuckle out of people telling me I need to do something 4 times in a row, when in my world, I already told you once, so why do I need to tell you the next 3 times the same thing I've already told you once? So if I tell you once, this is my bargaining committee, this is my bargaining team, from here until the end of the contract, or the contract gets ratified, it's gonna be the bargaining team, unless I give you notice that someone's either being removed or being replaced. I think
That's good enough for us.
Fair.
Oh, that's good enough for us, except now we have the added element of you having to tell us which ones are getting to use union time. And we'd like to know that before the bargaining session.
Why can't that be, again, in the cases and the scenarios that I brought up where someone doesn't show up that thought they were going to, the plane were going to, that it was an emergency or some sort of extenuating circumstances, why can't that be facilitated at the bargaining session? Listen, I know there's supposed to be 6 people here, but there's only 5 on this particular day. These are the 5 I want deducted from the union leave account. These 5 right here.
Because today could be the last day of the pay period. If we know a couple of days before, the 3 days before, we could deal with it, and the payroll will be correct.
If 3 days before is the last day of pay period, you never know when the pay period, that doesn't make sense. If I tell you 3 days before, I tell you that day, the pay period end date doesn't vary. That's fixed, isn't it?
It
Well,
doesn't-
if you tell us 3 days before, and then the day of the session say, oh, by the way, Bob didn't show up, so don't, go Bob's time, what's the big deal?
Well, what are you gaining by that? I don't
Structure.
understand. But if I'm telling you, on the day of the bargaining session, the person that I already told you, I want you to deduct from the union leave account, now I want you to not deduct. Now I'm making 2 orders, giving 2 orders that are confusing, rather than giving one confirming fixed order. This person's here, pay them from the union leave account, but this person's not here, and I'm not gonna tell you anything because they're not here. So I just, the payroll cutoff date doesn't make too much sense to me, because that's not gonna be affected by the 3-day window anyway.
Just do it. If you want to tweak a little bit of the language.
We'll take a look at it, and I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm really not. It's just that, some of this stuff just doesn't make sense to me, it really doesn't. It's a big work project, it really is. All right, so now we're coming to the wages. There are rumors running rampant throughout the county and up to the upper echelons of human mills, meaning that higher management, that the understanding was that these employees were gonna be entitled to a $1,000 bonus, that there was, even to the county commissioners.
I've never heard that, ever.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that have heard it.
Where did it come from? Who said that? I've never heard that. Seriously, you just said that? This is the first time I've ever heard that, ever.
First time I heard from them.
I can promise you that no one in my chain of command or no department head I've ever spoken to has ever heard that.
I'm not saying that you did hear it. I'm just telling you what we've heard. We've been hearing for a while.
Unfortunately, you heard something that was false.
Okay. Well, what our counter proposal is on year one, just change that 300 to 600, and then we just start this transportation surcharge and probably this thing down today. We can't get it done today. I'm sure we can figure out the rest of this stuff.
You never gave us an answer on 52.
53.
52 holidays.
Oh, yeah, we'll be okay with that. It's probably the package, yeah.
All right, we'll take a break.
All right, thanks.
Break it into 4.